since there's no AI, I don't think I have to worry about being run over by a train. And we're heading over here is another GP38-2, and we're gonna start it up. It is currently cold and dark. And so here we go. Alright, so we're going to set the handbrake. Here's the handbrake. It is already set, so check. Now we're going to go inside and we're going to open the fuse box door. Oh, don't slide over that fast. Come on. Alright, so we need to make sure that all the breakers are on. So we're going to turn on the radio. Everything else looks like it's on. Warning devices off. I guess we'll turn warning devices on for now, but there is a certain situation where you'll want to turn those off. Generator field, all the switches are on. The main breaker is on. We can even test the fuses if we want. That doesn't seem to be working. Anyway, everything's on, so we can close this door. Now above the fuse box we have the start run switch, and it is already in the start stop position. So now we can turn on the engine room lights and the platform lights, and we can turn on the cab lights and sit down in the engineer's seat. Now it says ensure that the reverser and throttle are at their neutral positions. Reverser neutral, throttle idle. Now proceed to the long hood of the locomotive and open the latch, the upper right of the engine room door, and then open the other engine room doors. Okay. So let's get up and let's open the door and go down here and find the engine room door. Unlock the latch, open the door. Now at this point, most of this, I'm sure many people are already familiar with it, but I'm just doing this actual read through of the manual in case there's some detail that some people aren't doing or didn't know about. Okay, so next step, it says we're going to move and hold the prime start switch to the left for 5 seconds, then release the prime start switch and move it to the right momentarily to trigger engine start. Then we'll await the engine start to complete and close the engine room doors. So here is the prime start switch, and we're going to prime the locomotive. Now I've watched a number of startup videos on YouTube of actual engineers starting actual locomotives, including this model, and in real life they typically prime it for like 20 or 30 seconds, but in game they've decided to require you to only prime it for 5 seconds. So here we go. Here's the 5 seconds. Then we release it, and all we got to do is flick it to the right. And then the engine starts right up. And you can hear the compressor kicking in. And I believe the startup sequence has completed, so we're going to go ahead and close the doors and relatch the latch. Now return to the cab and set the start run switch to the run position. So here's the start run switch. We're going to set it to the run position. And turn off the engine lights if you had turned them on, so we don't need these anymore. And turn on the number lights as appropriate. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the front and the rear number lights, and then sit in the engineer's seat. Okay. At the top right of the main control stand, you will see 3 switches labeled engine run, field generator, and control and fuel pump. We want to turn all of these on. So engine run on, field generator on, control pump on. And then we can come down here and we can turn on the ditch lights and the gauge lights, not the dynamic brake, gauge lights. And then set the forward headlights to bright. Now here's an important part. Check the brake stand and ensure that the cutoff valve is set to freight. This here is something I didn't notice for a long time, but this little thing right here is the cutoff valve, and as you can see, it is currently set to cut out. We want to change this to freight. Then we want to check the MU2A valve and ensure that it is set to lead or dead. The MU2A valve is located down here, and it is already set to lead or dead. The manual goes on. A cold and dark locomotive starts with no air in the brake pipe, so this must now be pressurized. Leaving the reverser in neutral, move the throttle to notch 1. You'll hear the engine rev up, and on the left-hand gauge of the 2 brake gauges you should see the red needle denoting the main reservoir pressure rising, and on the right-hand gauge the red needle, which denotes the brake cylinder pressure, also rising as the air is immediately fed into the locomotive's brake system. Wait for the main reservoir to reach 140 psi. So this is not quite there yet. Check that the independent brake is set to maximum. Independent brake is at full application. Release the automatic brake and you should see the white needle in the left-hand gauge denoting the equalizing reservoir pressure rise, and the white needle in the right-hand gauge denoting the brake pipe pressure rise behind it. Once both these needles reach 90 psi, the air brake system is ready for service. So let's go ahead and release the automatic brake, and you see these needles rising. Okay, so the main reservoir has gotten up to 90 psi, and this one is rising steadily. So once we've achieved 90 psi here, we move the throttle back to notch 0 and step out to the front of the locomotive and release the handbrake. Very important not to forget the handbrake. We're going to put the throttle back in neutral, and we're going to go over here, if I can get out, and we're going to release the handbrake. Okay, so that was pretty easy. Now this locomotive is ready to go. Now we're going to tackle the next thing, and this is the part that when the beta was out, there was no clear instructions about this setup process, and I never could figure it out. It's setting the EMD GP38-2 up for multiple unit working. Well, in order to do that, first we actually need to get it next to another locomotive. So let's go ahead and climb over here to the turntable. The sun's going down on this scenario, so we need to go ahead and quit fooling around here. So you can sit in the chair of the turntable, and you can either click this, the table is currently locked, or you can press S. The S key unlocks the turntable, and the A and D key move the turntable left for A, and right for D. So we actually do want to move it left again. If you press and hold down the A key, it will move and then when you release the A key, it will stop at the next track. So now we're lined up with our locomotive. We lock the turntable again, get out of the seat, and run over here. And we're going to climb up onto our locomotive and drive it onto the turntable. Okay, so I'm going to be using keyboard shortcuts here. When you're sitting in the engineer's seat of the locomotive, we have windows we can open here. Okay, so when you're sitting in the seat of the locomotive, we have the A key will increase the throttle, the D key will decrease the throttle. W will set the reverser to forward, S will set the reverser to backward. So we're going to set the reverser to forward. I'm going to press the open bracket key. That's the one on a US keyboard that's just underneath the plus and minus keys, the equal key. And I'm going to release the independent brake and bail it off until my pipe pressure is 0. Now I can move. I'm going to increase the throttle to notch 1. And we're going to set it back to idle because 3-4 miles an hour is plenty fast enough to be riding on this turntable. If I hit the right arrow key, I can look out the window and we can see how close we are to the end of the turntable. Technically, ideally, you would want to stop the locomotive where the center of mass of the locomotive is dead center on the turntable in real life, but the game doesn't necessarily care. Look and see, is the back end of my train on the turntable? Yes, it is. And I'm going to hit the close bracket key and set the independent brake to full service, full application, and come to a stop. Hitting the right arrow key to pop my head back inside the cab, and we're going to climb out of the conductor's seat and walk back to the control cab of the turntable. And we're going to sit into the controller's seat. We're going to unlock the turntable. Oh, by the way, while you're sitting in the turntable, W key turns on the CCD camera, and you get a couple of different camera views here. So as you can see, that one is looking that direction, and that one is looking that direction. I'm going to hit the 9 key on the top of the keyboard and go to the map, and let's figure out what we need to do to get over here next to one of these other GP38-2s. So I know that I want to get alongside these. So we're going to come up this track. Let's set that switch so that we're going to go straight next to the other ones. And so we're going to follow back here. We need to set this to go straight there. This is already straight. That's already turning the way we want it to turn. So we need to come and turn our turntable so the front of the locomotive is facing this right here, which is 3 tracks past that locomotive. Armed with this knowledge, I'm going to start spinning it to, I think the shortest path is to spin it to the left. So let's start spinning it to the left. Now if this is too complicated, you can't see out, the camera views really aren't great, and you're having a hard time figuring out where the heck is my turntable pointed. Unlike in unlike in the beta, when you hit the 9, the angle of the turntable is now actually depicted on the map, and it changes dynamically. So now we're lined up with this track. We need to be lined up with, let's see, 1, 2, 3. We need to be lined up with that track right there. Now here's a fun fact. The free camera that you access by hitting the 8 key, number 8, is also available when you're sitting in the seat of the turntable. So I can come out to here and I can move my camera around. And I can see 1, 2, 3. I want to come line up with this track right here. And while I'm in this camera mode, my keyboard controls still work, so I can begin turning the turntable until we line up with this track right here. Turn, turn, turn. I wonder if this is how fast a turntable moves in real life, or if they sped it up a little bit for gameplay purposes. Okay, as soon as I'm passing this track that I'm almost to it, now I release the key, turntable automatically stops at the next track. Now I hit the 1 key, number 1 on the keyboard, and I'm back in the seat. Let's lock the turntable, get out of the seat. Be responsible and close the door behind us. Now we go walk up to the ladder, climb up the steps, walk the gangplank, and get in the engineer's seat. So I've already set up all the switches, so we should be good to go. I'm going to hold the open bracket key to release the independent brake. Bail it off till our pressure drops to 0. Going to hit the A key, 1 little tap to put our throttle in notch 1, and away we go. Now, on this section of the Cumberland Yard, we have a speed limit of 10 miles per hour. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it into neutral there. I can flick the throttle up and off to maintain a constant speed. And as you can also see, I have all of the markers turned on right now still. At some point, if I want to challenge myself, I'll turn these off once I've learned the route. But I haven't had a chance to really drive this very much, so I haven't memorized the routes yet. But once I memorize, or think I've memorized the route, I'm going to turn these markers off so that I can challenge myself to see if I can drive the route from memory. When you're out doing a scenario where you're actually going up the line, you'll also have indications for what the next signal is going to be, as well as your next checkpoint. Let's give it a little more throttle. We can keep going 10 miles an hour. I do want to turn these off here at some point because that's it's completely covering the target that I'm trying to look at here, which is these other 2 locomotives. So we see we're coming up on the other 2 locomotives. And our throttle is in neutral. I'm going to go go ahead and press the close bracket key and take our independent brake up to full application. We're just going to stop alongside these other two. Okay, the manual says here, as MU lead, well, let me close this window here. It's a little bit loud. Okay, the manual says we're gonna make this current locomotive I'm sitting in right now the lead. So as MU lead, ensure that the locomotives have been fully set up as per the EMD GP38-2 startup instructions if required. Once the locomotives are operational, you can set them up for multiple unit working. The startup instructions will set the locomotive up to be suitable for leading a consist or being the sole locomotive in a consist. The key settings to be aware of should you need to change a locomotive from trailing back to lead are shown below. And it says you want these three switches should be on. The brake cutoff valve should be set to freight. The MU2A valve should be lead or dead. So this locomotive is already set up as lead. Now let's come out here and let's grab one of these other locomotives. Actually, we need to grab this one to the rear. Now these locomotives are already hooked together, but neither one is set up as trail. As you can see here, we've got all three of our switches are on. Our cutoff valve is set to freight, and our MU2A valve is set for lead or dead. So let me go ahead and get out of here. I'm going to show you how to hook it up if they weren't already joined together. So let's say this locomotive's having some problems up front. It can't be the lead anymore, so we're going to join it to this locomotive and make it the lead. So let's go ahead and release this coupler. At least one of your couplers has to be unlocked in order to join up with another train. So I've unlocked the coupler on the train that we're going to be driving. Let's just close this door. Sit down in the engineer's seat. Now we're going to go to the map view. Now you can get out and you can run down here and set these manually in first person, or you can do it this way. You can call your conductor, your pretend conductor, and have them set these switches. So this switch needs to be the way it was originally. Okay, and that switch, that one goes like that. That one needs to be set like that. Okay, so we're going to drive forward, and then we're going to drive back. Oh, no, wait, we're in this one. I am totally losing myself here. Okay, so scratch that. We're going to drive this one over there. This needs to be set like that. So we're going to drive this trailing locomotive down here, and then we're going to reverse and couple to the back of that. So, forward, so our automatic brake is released. Our brake valve pressures are fine. We're going to release the independent brake, bail it off until our needle goes to 0. I'm going to set the reverser to forward and kick the throttle up 1 notch. We've got plenty of velocity. we won't have to worry about stopping anytime soon. We just need to get past this switch. Go ahead and hit the close bracket key and start applying my brakes. Now we're going to call over the radio, and our pretend conductor is going to throw this switch back that way. And now we're going to hit the S key to put our, let me show you here. S key will cause our reverser to go first to neutral and then to reverse. Hit the open bracket key, hold it until our brake pipe pressure is down to 0. Now that we've bailed off, we can kick the throttle up to notch 1. And we are backing up. Now let's not go too fast. You definitely want to be under 5 miles an hour typically when you couple to another car, and really 3 miles an hour is better. You can also use the 3 camera to get an external view by hitting the number 3 key. I'm going to go ahead and start applying some brakes. And it's okay if we come to a complete stop, because now we have to release the brakes. In real train operation, they typically will or are supposed to come to a complete stop first and then slowly kind of creep into the Alright, there we go. We are coupled up. Back to the 1 camera. Let's pop our head back inside. So we've set up the other locomotive for lead. Now we need to set this one up as trail. There's a number of different ways you can set it up for trailing operation. First, I'm going to go ahead and set our reverser back to neutral, and our throttle is at 0. So there's a number of different options as MU trail or multiple unit trail. When setting up the GP38-2 in a non-lead position, you have several options depending on which role you want it to play in the consist. Just checking to make sure my stream is still functioning. Seem to be getting a little bit of wiggliness in the bit rate over here. All right, that's normal for my internet connection, so I don't stream very much, because I have crap upload speeds. All right, so if you want the trailing locomotive to be no power, no brakes, you're just pulling it. It's that they call dead in tow. In that case, the settings for dead in tow are this. These switches remain on. The cutoff valve remains in freight, and the MU2A valve remains in lead or dead. And if that is the situation, even if the locomotive is actually turned on and running, it will not respond to the other commands. And if you're going to be dragging it, I would recommend releasing all the brakes. In fact, technically I did not, it didn't feel like it was set, but let me double check that this, okay, yeah, it's released. I can see the light is on the release. Okay. Sit back down. So, if you're just pulling a disabled locomotive, or you just want to take a locomotive with you for use later, but you don't want to use it right now, it's dead in tow. It is currently set up for that release all the brakes, and you'll just pull it like a regular train car, but it won't have any brakes and it won't contribute to any brake power. The manual says, note, if the locomotive engine is not even started, then these switches don't matter. But if it is running and you just want it to sit in idle, then setting them to on means that they will ignore the signals from the lead locomotive and remain everything in idle. Now what if you want no power, but you do want it to contribute brakes? In that case, once again, these three switches remain on. The brake cutoff valve then gets set to cut out. And the MU2A valve, you're going to set that to trail 6 or 26. Just like that. So cut out, trail 6 or 26, all of these are on. Now in this configuration, the engine on this locomotive will just remain in idle. It'll run, but it won't contribute power to the consist. However, it will contribute its braking power. In this configuration, the power controls in the locomotive have control over the engine, so the lead unit will not be able to operate it remotely. This means that it remains at idle and does not contribute any power to the consist. The brake settings to cut out the brake handle and set it up to be driven by a connected unit in the lead or trail configuration, which your lead unit should be set to. This means that the locomotive will supply additional brake force to your train. Now what if you want this to be a full-blown MU? You want full power and full brakes. In that case, these three switches, we set them to off. This remains in cutout, and this one remains in, let me get down here, in trail 6 or 26. Hover, there we go. Hover, there we go. Trail 6 or 26. So, off, 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 cut out, trail 6 or 26. Now, in the locomotive set up in this configuration, the manual says, we disable the control stand for the power controls, which will allow the lead unit to have full control over the power on this locomotive. As the lead unit applies throttle positions, so the internal electronics of this locomotive stand will do the same. Brakes are also set up to be managed by the lead unit. Next we have distributed power. When you have a consist set up with locomotives that are not directly connected, such as when you have a locomotive set at the front and another set at the rear, this requires a slightly different configuration to ensure that all locomotives function correctly in the consist. The radio is therefore used to operate the rear locomotive. If you have an example consist of a pair of EMD GP38-2s at the front and a pair of EMD GP38-2s at the rear, you will need to set them up as follows. Now, on this scenario, we do not have 4 GP38s available to us in the yard. I already checked before we started, so we're not going to be able to do a full, pair in front and pair in back situation. However, we may have time. I do want to check one thing before I get up out of this locomotive. So this one's set up as a full power MU. If I hit the right arrow key while I'm sitting in the engineer's seat, it takes me to a focus view of the speedo and the brake pipe pressures. Second tap of the left arrow key, I get to look at these things. I'm not sure what the manual doesn't talk about PTT, so I'm not sure what that is. Now we want to look at this. We We can leave the lights, the number lights on or not. I don't know. That's still in run, so that's fine. And then the last time you tap the left, you come to the fuses. So I do want to make sure that the warning devices are off, because otherwise you'll be sitting in the lead locomotive and the alerter for this locomotive will go off, and you won't be able to get up and hit the alerter switch in this cab from the front. So make sure that the warning devices are switched off. That's not in the manual that I can see, but I actually discovered this by personal experience the other day when I set one of these up, and the alerter just started going off, beep 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 beep, and I hit the Q key to cancel the alerter, but it wouldn't cancel, and then we went into emergency, and fun times. That's why we are reading the fun manual. So everything in here is set up. If I hit the left arrow key again, I'm sitting over here. Now I'm sitting here. Now I'm leaning my head out this side. Now I'm leaning my head out that side. Now I'm back in the seat. Okay, so here are our two locomotives. And here's my guy. Hey, guy. Alright. So this one is set up the way it should be. Let's close that window and close that window, and the front door is closed. None of the interior lights are on. Everything's fine. Now we're going to come out of here. Walk to the lead locomotive. Cross the gate. Go across and go to the lead locomotive. And we're going to set this up. Let me go close this front door. Okay, everything should be working fine. I'm going to go out here to my 9 key and come up to the map. We're going to call our imaginary conductor and have him set these switches up so that we come all the way out to here. We need to set that switch to there. And just to give ourselves some room, we're going to set that switch to there. And then from there, we can go into this yard area. Okay, let's go. Open bracket key to release the independent brake. Bail it off till our pressure is at 0. Set the reverser to forward. Tap the throttle up to notch 1. And we can easily maintain our speed now. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go down into this yard area over here. We're just going to pick one of these consists and link up to it. And I'm going to come back over here and grab this other GP38, and we'll set it up for distributed power and demonstrate how that works before the sun goes down. Oh, too late. Looks like the sun's already down. kind of annoying that this scenario starts out so late in the evening. When you launch this scenario, there is no option to change time of day, so you're stuck with a late evening overnight shift, whether you like it or not. Oh, okay. So I see our speed limit is increased to 15 miles an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and give her some more power and get up to speed. And we're just going to come out here and wait till we get past these switches. Where are we at now? We need to get past this switch, I think. I'll double check that. Which looks like it is that switch. So right after we pass this red building, this little brick building over here, we're gonna put on the brakes and figure out where we need to go. Hitting Q to cancel the alerter. Alright, throttle to 0. Gonna hit the automatic brakes, and we're gonna go to service, because we're using both brakes in the system. As that train comes to a stop, yeah, we've gone, that's fine, we've gone well past where we need to. It'll come to a halt. So which consist do I want to link up to? Well, let's just link up to this one right here, this one in the middle. So what I need to do is actually come down the track next to it, past it, and then hook up to the front of it, because we're going to be going off that direction. Because actually the lead unit is facing this way, so let's just pretend we're going to go off in that direction. So let's back it up to here. So we need to come down. Conductor, set that switch. That switch is correct. That switch is correct. That switch is correct. This switch needs to be thrown over there. Okay, that's it. We are ready to go. So now I'm going to put the reverser into reverse. And off in the distance is our target. So the keyboard shortcut for the automatic brakes is the semicolon and the apostrophe key. So I'm going to hit the semicolon key to release the automatic brake. And we wait for our brake pipe pressure to hit 0. Go notch 1. Get up some speed here. Go notch 2. We're allowed to go 15 miles an hour. So let's get to it. Go ahead and kick it down to notch 1 there. So we're actually still driving from this locomotive, but we're going backwards. Because the frame of reference, whether forward and backwards, is from this locomotive. So we're actually backing into this consist up here. Yeah, my bit rate's unstable now, man. We'll see if this thing holds on. I never can rely on any sort of upload speed. Okay, my alerter just went off, but just as I was going to hit the throttle to idle, that cancels the alerter. So if I hit the 3 key again, that actually puts me on this locomotive more directly, so we can set up a view here. And I'm just kind of letting the speed bleed off right now. It's gradually slowing down. We are gradually slowing down. I don't have any brakes on. May have to actually give it a little bit of throttle just to keep it rolling. Just a little bit. And back to neutral, or back to zero throttle. Okay, we're going to make a nice clean coupling here, and I'm going to go ahead and put the automatic brake into, come on, full service, there we go. Let's jump back in the cab here. So from now on, our independent brake's going to stay released, and we're going to be controlling all the braking from the automatic brake. There you go. So, what we can do now is we can go ahead and pop out of here. Across here and go grab this other locomotive. Oop. Oh, there's the sun. It hadn't actually gone down, it was just behind the clouds. So I'm picking this other one just because it's the same model and for consistency. Oh good, my stream says it is now excellent, so it's no longer unstable. Hopefully what I've been streaming so far wasn't a total loss. Okay, so this one is released. Our front door is here. Let's check our fuse panel and see what's going on here. Okay, the radio needs to be on. And we're going to keep the warning devices off. And this one should actually be set up for lead. It's probably ready to go. Okay, on. Cutoff valve to freight. MU2A valve to lead or dead. I guess I can turn on the gauge lights. I don't really need the other lights. We're going to earn a reward for using the horn. there you go. Okay, so we're going to do something similar to what we just did. First, Mr. Conductor, let's set that switch to there. It's going to bring me up to here. And around there. We're going to come up the same way, which means we need to set this switch back to that. Okay. We are ready to go. Going to ensure my automatic brake is released. I'm going to release the independent brake, bail it off. And then we shall set the reverser to forward, throttle to 1, and get to going. See over there are the two locomotives we just attached to the consist. So what we're going to need to do is when we go up there, we're going to switch back down and take one of these adjacent tracks until we get to the other end of it, and then we're going to hook this locomotive up to the opposite end of the consist. That's what we're going to do. And that's what we're aiming to do. Oh, let's go ahead and increase our speed. And like before, we're just going to come past that red building. Such beautiful scenery. Okay, we can go ahead and cut our throttle. And hitting the close bracket key in just a moment. Running light loco, it really doesn't take much to bring it to a stop. It will come pretty quickly. Now we're going to have our conductor throw that switch that way, and that will bring us down this line and down this ladder. Now instead of turning this way, want to keep going straight. Can't take this one because there's already another consist there, so let's take this one. And we should be set up. Now when we get to the other end, let's make sure we can come out. We're going to do that. Okay, everything else is set fine. And we're going to have to pull past this switch here and then set it in reverse back in. Setting the reverser to reverse. Open bracket key to release the independent brake. Bail off the pressure. The pressure. Get throttled. Now for this locomotive, it really doesn't matter which way it's facing because it's just going to be for distributed power at the end of a consist. I think if they have their choice, they like to have, if it's just a single trailing locomotive, they like to have it facing backwards, if possible, but it's not the end of the world if they can't do it. See, here we've got a turntable. I could turn it around if I wanted to, but we're running out of daylight here, and I just want to demonstrate the distributed power unit setup. So now we're just going to come down this apparently seldom used siding here. Look at all that overgrowth. I'm just going to be feathering my throttle between 2 and 1 to maintain a rough 15 mile an hour speed. Coal cars full of coal. That's what we've got going on there. Wow, I can't believe this little demonstration has already taken me over an hour. I can't stay up all night, folks. So I may end up having to do the other locomotives. They're all very similar in how they operate, but I wanted to demonstrate each one individually just so you can see the subtle differences and, you know, get used to how they are. Okay, now here comes the tricky part, trying to figure out when I need to stop. So I have to go past the track that the intermodal is on. Oh, we're already at it? Let's see here. Throttle to 0. Let's just go ahead and bring her to a stop and see what's happening here. Okay, so yeah, this is the train. This is the track. Yeah, we're already well past it. Let's just set that switch. Now we can pull forward and hook up to the other end of the consist. Let's go pop in here and turn on my front headlights. Alright, reverser to forward, independent brake to release, bail off. Away we go. So I'm not going to build up too much speed this time. We're just going to kind of get on here and go forward. not a whole lot to say right now. We're just inching forwards towards onto the back end of this consist. Just letting the speed bleed off here. Give it a little bit of brakes. That should do it. All right. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to set the throttle to neutral, the throttle to idle, the reverser to neutral. We're going to release that. We're going to leave these on. Now it says when you're setting up for distributed power, we can actually turn these lights off. When you're setting up for distributed power, the front pair, the lead unit, you will set that one up as the lead and ensure that the radio fuse is switched on. And the trailing unit for the front pair, you set it up as trail. So basically they're set up the way they would normally be set up. For the rear pair, or in this case the rear one, the lead unit, you'll set it up as a lead and ensure the radio fuse is on. So basically, our work here is done. I wonder if that turns up the sound of the. That's interesting. Okay. Let's double check our fuse cabinet. The radio is on. The warning devices are off. Okay, so the manual says, in this configuration, when the engineer makes a throttle or brake change on the front pair lead unit, the front trailing unit will respond because it is physically connected. At the same time, a radio message is sent. This is not audible to the player. In which the rear pair lead unit will react to and follow the same settings. So basically this trailing rear locomotive unit is now radio controlled. This will then be automatically reflected on the rear pair trailing unit through its direct connection if we had one. This system is intended to mimic the behavior of a second engineer in the rear pair leading unit that is following the actions of the lead engineer. When set up in this way, the engineer at the front of the train has full control over all 4 locomotives simultaneously. The next section in the setting up the EMD GP38-2 is for multiple unit lighting controls. The EMD GP38-2 has a switch on the wall behind the engineer's seat that has 4 settings. These allow you to set up the way the headlights will work on the other locomotives in the consist. Okay, so let's do the focused view. Oop, went too far. So here is our headlight control, and it is currently set to single unit or intermediate unit. In this setting, the locomotive will not react to the headlight instructions from the other locomotives in the consist. The headlights, if required, must be set up using the normal switches on the control stand. Okay, so the other choice is controlled from another unit coupled at either end. Or no, the next one in the manual. Let's go by the manual, because we are reading the fun manual. Controlling with unit coupled at long hood end. Use this setting if this locomotive is the controlling unit for the lighting configuration. Usually this would be the lead locomotive, and the next unit in the consist is coupled to this locomotive's long hood end. Well, that's not true, so we don't set it to that. Controlling with unit coupled at short hood end. Use this setting if this locomotive is the controlling unit for the lighting configuration, and usually this would be the lead locomotive, and then the next unit in the consist is coupled to this locomotive's short hood end. Or controlled from another unit coupled at either end. If this unit should respond to lighting commands from a controlling unit, then use this setting. When the lighting is set up correctly, this means that the engineer can use the front and rear headlight controls on their lead locomotive stand, and it will correctly operate the lights on the locomotives in the consist. So I believe this should be set to that. This locomotive is all set up. Let's just double check here that these brakes aren't set on these cars. Should only be a couple of them. Handbrake applied. Okay, we want to release that handbrake. We do. Okay, it just says handbrake now. Oh, handbrake applied. Okay, there we go. Handbrake. Handbrake. Let's make sure that they didn't set two cars. Depending on the gradient, they would typically set 2 or 3 cars. Handbrakes at one end. Handbrake applied. Okay, what's going on here? What's happening with this lovely handbrake? Okay. Oh, I see. There's actually 2 interactions here. The actual wheel and the lever there. Okay, so that one is now released. It would be embarrassing if you drove all the way to Grandma's with the handbrake on. Handbrake. Okay, so that one's not applied. So they just had set to the last 2 cars. So let's go ahead and walk up to the lead. Or run. Running is fun, as you read the fun manual. Alright, let's make sure that we didn't have any handbrake set here. Handbrake, okay. Handbrake applied, so we want to release the handbrake. Or not. Huh. We seem to be having a little issue here with this handbrake. Let's see if this one's set. Could be a glitch. Could be a glitch. Handbrake. Okay, this one is not applied. Handbrake. That one is not applied. Alright, so what's the deal with this one? Why can't we apply... oh, was it this one? Alright, we'll just leave it like that. I think it's a glitch. Let's just climb back aboard our locomotive and see where we can take it. And sitting in the engineer's seat. I'm not sure if I understand these brake pipe pressure readings. Well, anyway, where can we go now? So we want to come out here, come out here, come out here, keep coming out here, come out here, come out here. I guess we'll just keep going. The disadvantage of this scenario is that there's no dispatch, so I can't actually drive very far, but you will eventually run out of map anyway. You can see that I can come down here as far as this and all the lights are red. And really, there's not much more beyond that anyway. Oh, this, we do need to set up these lights. So this is controlling unit coupled at long hood end. Come on, controlling unit coupled at long hood end. So that sets this one up. And the rear one for this particular locomotive, I don't think we need it. We can leave that as is. So that's pretty much everything. Well, I can come in here. What we can do is let's go run back to the other locomotive real quick and set its lights up properly, since we are trying to read the front manual. We want to do everything by the book. And we're going to set this one to controlled from another unit, coupled at either end. Alright, sorry about that. We should be good to go. So let's set the reverser to forward. Let's hit the semicolon key and release our automatic brake. Wait for our pressures to stabilize. Give 2 blasts from the horn. And let's set the throttle to 1 and start picking up some speed. wait for the trailing unit to get up here.